Chapter 391 Fiery Evil Tyrant. Even though he came from Shrek Academy, Yuao still hesitated a little after he saw this soul beast. He quickly tried to recall everything that he had learned so as to recognize what this soul beast was. This was a devouring dragon, which was also known as a mini tyrant dragon. Tyrant dragons were considered one of the strongest among earth dragons. A mature tyrant dragon would grow to more than 15 meters in height. Above a 10,000-year cultivation, they could even reach more than 30 meters in height. They were definitely considered one of the largest soul beasts. Their physical offense and defense were also very strong, and they could compare to a true giant dragon. However, tyrant dragons weren't adept at long-range attacks. Their outstanding physical abilities also restricted them in other aspects. This devouring dragon in front of Yuao was very similar to a tyrant dragon in terms of its appearance. However, it was easy to tell them apart from their sizes. A devouring dragon was also very good at defense, but it was different from a tyrant dragon in the sense that its innate soul skill was extremely domineering. Its innate soul skill was called devouring heaven and earth. It was innately bloodthirsty. It could recover its energy and evolve by devouring its enemy after killing it. Even in the world of soul beasts, devouring dragons weren't too popular. That was because they were too brutal. In the eyes of a devouring dragon, every creature was just a target to kill and devour. It didn't matter whether one was a soul beast or a human, or whether one was a strong opponent. It would only stop its rampage after killing and filling its stomach. After this, it would enter a deep sleep. A devouring dragon grew much faster than ordinary soul beasts. In general, they needed only 1,000 years to reach the cultivation of an ordinary 10,000-year soul beast. However, they were usually killed when they met a stronger opponent due to their bloodthirstiness. Apart from a devouring dragon, there were also other types of soul beasts that relied on devouring their enemy's strength to evolve. One of the most notable and the strongest among these was the dark demon evil tiger. It was just that a dark demon evil tiger possessed extremely high intelligence, whereas a devouring dragon's intelligence was usually very limited, and it relied on its instincts to kill. As a result, devouring dragons were considered inferior to dark demon evil tigers. This devouring dragon could be considered quite large. From the color of its scales to the length of its tail, it was easy to tell that it was a devouring dragon with a cultivation in the 10,000-year bracket. As for its specific cultivation, it was roughly between 10,000 and 20,000 years. At such a level, the abilities of a devouring dragon were rather terrifying. However, this dragon seemed to be staggering forward as it advanced. The sides of its body had obvious burn marks, and it also looked very frantic. Evidently, whatever was chasing it had to be something stronger. An intense beam of red light was shot out from behind it at this moment. This beam of red light was extremely thick, at least a meter wide. Wherever it passed, all obstacles were instantly turned into flying ashes. The devouring dragon could evidently sense the threat to its life, and charged forward with all its might. At the same time, all its scales stood on end, and a layer of dark blue light was released from its body, forming a protective barrier. The beam of red light came too quickly, and it also covered a large area. While this devouring dragon reacted very quickly, it still took a grazing hit. As its dark blue light contacted this beam of red light, the protective light barrier distorted quickly, and started to undulate. After this, it burst like a bubble, and the remaining red light swept past the devouring dragon's back. A plume of smoke immediately burst up. This devouring dragon screamed in pain and rolled on the ground before it leapt up again. This time, it turned around and raised its head. As it opened its bloody mouth, it roared furiously into the sky. It seemed to know that it couldn't escape. From its stance, it was obvious that it was ready to go all out and risk its life. A ball of dark blue gas instantly took form in its mouth, and the center of this ball of gas was pitch black. It was its innate soul skill, devouring heaven and earth. Within a region that covered 100 meters, everything turned eerily dark, and a terrifying devouring power turned all life in this region into ash. Their energy was devoured regardless whether they were worms or plants. The strongest part of this devouring dragon's devouring heaven and earth was its attack. Just with this innate soul skill and its immense physical strength, a devouring dragon was able to gain an absolute advantage in front of most soul beasts. Yuao felt helpless right now. Just as this devouring dragon attacked, Yuao was immediately enveloped by its devouring heaven and earth. As he was only several dozen meters away, Yuao only felt that everything around him had turned eerily cold, and a strange force was maniacally sucking his life energy away. It felt as if his bones and flesh were about to be torn apart, and his entire body would be crushed into powder. Of course, this feeling only lasted for an instant before it ended. Yuao's imitation was deactivated, and a layer of gold isolated that terrifying, devouring aura. Of course, Yuao also revealed himself from his invisible state. His imitation wasn't an all-around skill. Against such an area of effect skill, he eventually still had to reveal himself. Yuao felt a little depressed. What's going on? I was just trying to watch this intense fight, but I'm being dragged in now. As a dim light flashed, Yuao revealed a helpless look on his face. He immediately sprang up into the air and drifted back like a snowflake. His greatest hope was that these two soul beasts hadn't noticed him, and would continue their fight. This was why he tried his best to retract his aura and suppress his presence. However, it was a pity that soul beasts were most sensitive to humans. Just as Yuao revealed himself, a piercing scream resonated in the air. He also finally saw the figure of the second soul beast that had unleashed the earlier beam of red light. This soul beast had a very strange appearance. It was drifting in the air, and looked like a balloon. It was a pity that it wasn't a balloon, but a huge, bloodshot eye that was a meter across. There were clusters of brown stripes around this huge eye, and it had 6 tentacles that drooped onto the ground, which supported it in the air. As these tentacles dragged the eye, they left rotten ditches behind along its path. Out of these 6 tentacles, 3 were green, while the other 3 were red, and they were clearly separated. When it appeared, it was already staring at Yuao. Evil eye. While it wasn't easy identifying a devouring dragon, it was much easier identifying this soul beast. That was because it was Yuao's target on his journey into this forest. However, Yuao was a little depressed, because this evil eye wasn't a pure spiritual type soul beast, even though it seemed to already be as powerful as a sovereign king. It seemed to be a mix of different types. When he was in Shrek Academy, there had been a special lesson taught about evil eyes. Not all evil eyes possessed the same abilities. There were different species of evil eyes. Among the evil eye species, those with fewer abilities were actually stronger. This meant that the fewer innate soul skills they possessed, the greater their abilities. The evil eye tyrant king only had one elemental type, spiritual. It could use countless spiritual type soul skills with its immense spiritual power. In addition, the area that it could cover with its attacks was frightening, even exceeding that of the beast god, Ditian. Right now, Yuao could tell that this evil eye possessed at least 3 different elements from the attack it had unleashed earlier and from the colors of its tentacles. It was spiritual type, fire type and corrosive type. Its red tentacles were fire type while its green tentacles were corrosive type. Along with the huge, fiery red eye that it had, it was obvious that fire was its main element. An evil eye with a cultivation exceeding 10,000 years could be considered an evil eye tyrant. This evil eye tyrant was very well suited to its name. However, it was a pity that it wasn't what Yuao needed right now. Yuao needed a pure spiritual type evil eye. This meant that it had to be an evil eye that possessed the same innate gifts as the evil eye tyrant king, or one that was mainly spiritual type and had other auxiliary elemental types. It was best if it had as little of the other elements as possible. That scream earlier was released by this fiery evil tyrant. Its mouth was behind its pupil. As it screamed, it also drifted forward faster. The strange thing was that the devouring dragon that was about to fight it earlier also turned around and faced Yuao with its mouth wide open. Surely not? They've turned from enemies to friends in such a short time, and are treating me as a joint target. Yuao furrowed his brow and also descended to the ground. After this, he saw that fiery evil tyrants are brightening up. Rings of strange distorted patterns started to spread from it. It was as if the surrounding brown stripes around it had turned illusory. Everything within a region that spanned several hundred meters in diameter started to distort. This was an innate soul skill of an evil eye, spiritual force field. Anyone whose spiritual power was weaker would be suppressed. Depending on one's cultivation and spiritual power, he would experience different intensities of dizziness, dullness, fatigue, dispiritedness, weakness, and other states. This was also one of the best crowd control skills that evil eyes were capable of. It was rumored that the evil emperor's spiritual force field could cover a region that spanned 30 kilometers. Simply put, he could cover half of Radiant City. When this fiery evil tyrant unleashed its spiritual force field, the devouring dragon charged towards Yuao. As it opened opened its mouth wide. A beam of black light that glowed dark blue at the edges shot towards Huo Yuao. It was its devouring heaven and earth. Not only did these two soul beasts reconcile, but they even reached an agreement to attack Huo Yuao together in such a short period of time. They were coordinating rather well too. If it was some ordinary soul emperor, he wouldn't feel comfortable facing this fiery evil tyrant's spiritual force field even if he wasn't completely suppressed. It was a pity that this fiery evil tyrant was facing Huo Yuao, the eyes of Asura whose spiritual power greatly exceeded his soul power and was already at the standard of a titled Douluo. The look in Huo Yuao's eyes was very cold. His determined look didn't waver at all even against the control of this fiery evil tyrant's spiritual force field. Since the two of you are courting death, I shall grant you your wishes. Huo Yuao didn't bother with the devouring dragon that had unleashed its devouring heaven and earth at him. He was focused on the fiery evil tyrant instead. Suddenly, his eyes turned purplish gold. Yes, his eyes had turned a completely transparent purplish gold. Everything around them seemed to slow down, and the fiery evil tyrant's spiritual force field suddenly stopped. It was as if the space around it had been instantly locked. Spiritual shock. Huo Yuao stood quietly in place and spoke each word with a pause in between. As he spoke, the fiery evil tyrant's eye seemed to be in a daze, whereas the devouring dragon continued to unleash its devouring heaven and earth. However, it scattered amidst the distorted air. A ring of purplish gold light started to spread from Huo Yuao's head. More accurately speaking, it spread towards those two soul beasts in a fan shape. The air was illuminated in the same color as this purplish gold light passed. The devouring dragon that was charging in front suddenly stiffened and instantly went into a daze. The bloodthirsty and crazed look in its eyes turned still. Following this, its eyes dimmed. Its eyes, nose, mouth, and ears started to shoot out reddish white gore. Its head didn't blow apart from the explosion, but its brain and spirit were crushed under the effects of Huo Yuao's terrifying spiritual shock. The purplish gold light continued to spread. When it landed on the fiery evil tyrant, its eye suddenly turned purplish gold, and there was an astonished look in it. However, rings of red, green and gold light surged from its eye, trying to resist the force of Huo Yuao's spiritual shock. Humph. Huo Yuao snorted coldly. He immediately retracted his spiritual shock before focusing it all on the fiery evil tyrant. Suddenly, all the lights that had resisted his spiritual shock were destroyed. The fiery evil tyrant's eye started to shine brightly with a purplish gold light. In the next instant, another explosion occurred. Two black soul rings rose in succession, flashing in the air. Huo Yuao seemed to possess some invisible suction force that guided those two soul rings towards him. Huo Yuao shook his head scornfully and waved his right hand, dispersing these two black soul rings that most soul masters would have craved. Originally, he didn't want to kill any soul beasts. For Kiyua's sake, he didn't want to commit too many sins. However, those two soul beasts had attacked him with all their might immediately after they discovered him. Huo Yuao was in sorrow and pain because of Kiyua's death. The moment he unleashed his abilities, he immediately killed his opponents. However, he hadn't expected his spiritual power to be so strong right now. He didn't shift from his position at all. Using only the first soul ring of his spirit eyes, he unleashed his spiritual interference domain and spiritual shock to kill those two soul beasts that were considered some of the strongest 10,000-year soul beasts in existence. What standard has my spiritual power reached? Huo Yuao muttered to himself. He wasn't too happy right now just because his spiritual cultivation was extremely powerful. The strength of his spiritual power had also helped to enhance his overall abilities to a standard that he wasn't clear of either. This also meant that obtaining his seventh soul ring was going to be much more difficult than expected. It was definitely not going to be easy to find a soul ring that was fit to be his seventh soul ring. His spiritual cultivation was simply too strong. If he were just finding a soul ring to become a soul sage, it wasn't going to be beneficial to his future development. Must I really make a move on a 100,000-year evil eye tyrant? However, can I fight an evil eye tyrant of that cultivation? Oh. Just as Huo Yuao was pondering, he suddenly felt a weird trace of spiritual aura rising in front of him. After this, he instantly turned around and disappeared. This spiritual aura came from the fiery evil tyrant that he had just killed. As his figure flashed, Huo Yuao immediately came to the position where the fiery evil tyrant was blown apart. He saw a diamond-shaped crystal entity on the ground. This crystal entity was dark red, and there were greenish flowery patterns on it. What's this? Is this the crystal core of this fiery evil tyrant? The spiritual aura that it released seems to have come from this. Don't tell me that this is its spirit. Evil eyes belonged to the Sun Moon continent. As a result, Shrek Academy didn't have much information on them. At most, only a few ordinary evil eyes with 100-year or 1,000-year cultivations were killed and recorded in the academy. There wasn't any information on 10,000-year evil eye tyrants. Huo Yuao squatted down and picked up the crystal entity. He poured his spiritual power into it and immediately discovered that there were remnants of spiritual power in this crystal entity. He was immediately enlightened. It seemed like the spirits of evil eyes would be enhanced when they reached a certain cultivation before forming such a crystal. After this, the spiritual origins of these evil eyes would be hidden in such a crystal. Even though he had used his immense spiritual power to kill the evil eye tyrant earlier, a shred of its spirit in this crystal still managed to flee. Evil eyes indeed had specialized spiritual abilities. Even a fiery evil tyrant that wasn't pure spiritual type could escape with a shred of its spirit if it was killed. Does its escaped spirit possess any memories? Will it be able to draw the evil eye tyrant king? I don't think so. As the ruler of this evil demon forest, what kind of an existence is the evil emperor? Will he personally show himself just because someone from his species was killed? If he does, he must be too bored. Furthermore, the Ice Empress and Brother Skydream once said that this evil eye tyrant king should be about to face his 8th bottleneck. It's difficult to tell whether he'll be able to break through this bottleneck. If he can't, he'll die. Naturally, he wouldn't have time to be bothered with something as trivial as this. As long as the evil eye tyrant king didn't appear, Huo Yuao was confident in facing any form of crisis. Evil eyes were adept at spiritual power, but so was he. An evil eye which didn't have at least 100,000-year cultivation was unlikely to pose any threat to him. As for those that had exceeded 100,000-year cultivation, Huo Yuao was confident of escaping from them. Of course, he wouldn't just wait here foolishly. What if a 100,000-year evil eye really appeared? After pondering for a moment, he drifted towards the perimeter of the core region of this evil demon forest. He had a subtle feeling that the fiery evil tyrant he had just killed would bring him some trouble. This premonition was very clear and strong. It came from the skull of destiny that he had obtained from the three-eyed golden lion. When he focused his thoughts on this skull, Huo Yuao could sense that countless threads seemed to be released from his head, and each thread seemed to be connected to a destiny that was bound to happen. They gave him clues. The blessing of destiny helped him to usher in good fortune and avoid calamities. Huo Yuao suspected that Wang Qiuer had predicted that he was going to be in big trouble before she went to Sunrise City to find him. By going there to find him, she was going to face a calamity because of him. However, she still proceeded without any hesitation and sacrificed herself. There was a simple reason why Huo Yuao ran outward. This evil demon forest was the territory of the evil eyes. He was safer the further he was from the core region. He had to wait until the feeling that he had disappeared before he entered the core region again. As he fled, Huo Yuao was thinking continuously. After he finished his cultivation and moved off, his mind was still filled with Wang Qiuer and Wang Donga. He didn't think about the current state of his mind. However, he had calmed down after the fight just now and was temporarily free from his sorrow. It was extremely important for him to think. As he calmed down, he started to sense his current condition. He discovered that his spiritual sea had undergone a transformation. It was still a spiritual sea, but there was now an additional island in it. It was a splendid and magnificent island. This island was very large, and it was at the center of his spiritual sea. The Ice Empress, Snow Empress, and Skydream Iceworm were all on this island. There were pavilions, terraces, and courtyards on this island. It seemed like a mansion owned by a noble family. When Huo Yuao took a closer look, he was stunned. That was because the building on this island was actually the Duke's mansion. This was a spiritual reflection. This was a spiritual reflection that had appeared in his spiritual sea after his spiritual power materialized. Spiritual reflection occurred when the most basic thing in his heart was reflected on a particular situation. Huo Yuao had just reached this level and didn't know how to adjust his spiritual reflection yet. However, he could subtly sense that the growth of his spiritual reflection would determine the direction of his future abilities. He still had to figure everything out on his own. As he reached this level, Huo Yuao was basically certain to become a titled Douluo and even a transcendent Douluo in the future. Once he obtained his 7th soul ring, the restriction of ultimate ice on him would cease to exist, and his cultivation speed would increase significantly. Huo Yuao was only 18 years old right now. With his current condition, he could have 9 rings in 10 years at most. He could become a 9-ringed titled Douluo with an ultimate martial soul. He would be extremely powerful then. Moreover, he possessed extraordinary spiritual power. Even though he possessed an ultimate ice martial partial soul, it still couldn't compare to his spirit eyes, which possessed great spiritual power. Kiyua, what is the soul skill that you gave me when you fused with me? Everything that Wang Kiyua had left for Huo Yua was in his body, including her soul bone and soul ring. Wang Kiyua had mentioned before that she possessed the abilities of a 100,000-year soul beast, even though she wasn't that old, because she was the emperor beast. She would have given Huo Yua 2 soul skills from her soul bone and ring. Just as Huo Yua was trying to sense the abilities that came with his 6th soul ring, a weird emotional undulation suddenly surfaced in his heart. They were negative emotions, filled with hatred, fury, and the urge to kill. When they first surfaced, Huo Yua immediately felt like he was about to go crazy. Gusts of cold were instantly released from his skull of destiny and seeped into his spiritual sea. They quickly suppressed the manic feeling, and he also stopped moving. There was something wrong with his surroundings. The scenery was still the same, but he could clearly feel that something wasn't right. It was still the evil demon forest, but Huo Yua felt as if he were in another world now. It felt like he was being forced out of the normal world by some kind of weird force. This was a spiritual dreamland? A domain-type spiritual ability? Huo Yua was astonished. Even with his current spiritual power that was in the concrete material realm, emotion still poured into his heart and caused him to enter some kind of spiritual dreamland. His opponent's spiritual power was undoubtedly very strong. Was he really so unfortunate? Did he really draw the evil eye Tyrant King over? If that was really the case, he was going to die without any chance. As he focused his gaze, his entire aura changed. Immense spiritual power instantly started to surge out from his body and through his head, like flowing water. The 6 soul rings of his spirit eyes revolved around his body as they shone brightly, especially the last, rose gold soul ring, which was extremely blinding. Rings of distorted light also started to spread out from Huo Yua's body. When the lights from his body contacted the air from the outside world, Huo Yua suddenly felt as if he had drawn open curtains, opened a window, and entered another world. Everything around him turned illusory and started to ripple. After this, they changed into countless projections of strong soul beasts leaping towards him maniacally. Huo Yua wasn't moved, and just stood where he was. He shut his eyes and pressed his right hand against his forehead. After this, he coldly shouted, "Spiritual shock." The tone of the second word sounded gloomier and rougher. At each word, his aura soared higher. Reciting the name of his soul skill was an ability that Huo Yua figured out when he went into closed-door cultivation in Sunrise City. He combined the spells and incantations that Electrolux had passed to him with his soul skills, and used those incantations to enhance the strength of his soul skills. He didn't originally succeed in his research into this ability. It was only when his spiritual power achieved a qualitative increase and reached the concrete material realm that he managed to achieve his target in his first attempt at using this ability. The names of his soul skills had become incantations. Even though it was limited to his spiritual shock right now, it was still very beneficial to him. A purplish gold glow started to spread from Huo Yua's forehead. It looked like ripples across the pond of reality. Wherever these ripples passed, those distorted projections were all shattered like mirrors that had been smashed. Good, very good. An interesting human. No wonder you dare to step into my territory. So it turns out that you are adept at spiritual abilities. It seems like you were especially here to hunt those from my species. It's a pity that you're doomed today, even though you're a spiritual type soul master. Everything around him became normal again. Huo Yua used his spiritual detection to look in the direction the voice had come from. He turned around. When he saw the owner of that voice, he straightened his gaze, and his expression immediately became serious. It was an evil eye, a strange but powerful evil eye. Just from its color, it was clear that it was much more arrogant than the fiery evil tyrant earlier. The body of this evil eye, or rather its huge eye, was silver white. Its size was even more terrifying. It was more than 3 meters across. The fiery evil tyrant earlier seemed like a little kid in front of him. Huo Yua was even more shocked that this evil eye had 16 drooping tentacles. The number of tentacles was also a semi-definite way of determining the strength of an evil eye. The more tentacles an evil eye had, the stronger it was. The fiery evil tyrant earlier had only had 6 tentacles, but it was already very strong offensively. If Huo Yua hadn't used his spiritual shock to destroy it, he would have found it very difficult to resist its specialized fire type attack, the fiery gaze. However, this evil eye actually had 16 tentacles, and they were all silver white, just like its body. This also meant that this evil eye only possessed 1 element, or possibly 2 elements. It was definitely a spiritual type soul beast. As for whether it had a second element, Huo Yua couldn't tell yet. From the spiritual type soul skill that it had unleashed earlier, it was likely to be from the same bloodline as the evil emperor. Evil eyes from this bloodline were purely of the spiritual element, and they held a very high status among evil eyes as the most noble. In addition, their abilities were extremely powerful. Huo Yua was in luck. 100,000 years. Is this a 100,000-year evil eye tyrant? Huo Yua twisted the edge of his lips. Aren't I too unbelievably fortunate? I'm getting whatever I want. It's just that I have to be able to handle this dish that's been presented to me, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be so easy. We'll only know who's dead and who's alive after fighting. While this was a crisis, it was also an opportunity. If this were a 100,000-year evil eye of a different type, Huo Yua might have just fled. He wasn't skilled enough to resist a 100,000-year soul beast right now. However, things were different if this evil eye was really a pure spiritual type evil eye. Huo Yua's soul power couldn't compare to his opponent, but he was confident in taking on such a 100,000-year evil eye, given his spiritual cultivation. Moreover, he had even inherited Wang Qiu's Emperor Beast abilities. To a certain extent, he possessed a part of the Emperor Beast's abilities. Even though he was a human, Huo Yua naturally wouldn't stand still and chat with such a strong opponent. As he spoke, he had already made his move. He knew the importance of seizing the opportunities presented to him. White, purple, black, 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 rose gold. 6 soul rings rose in succession. When this 100,000-year evil eye tyrant saw his rose gold soul ring, its pupil shrank slightly. Just like how humans were familiar with soul beasts, this 100,000-year evil eye tyrant naturally understood human soul masters, given its cultivation. Huo Yua's luck was simply too good. The fiery evil tyrant that he had killed earlier was this evil eye tyrant's concubine. The shred of spirit that the fiery evil tyrant had escaped with might not be enough to resurrect it, but it was sufficient to inform this evil eye tyrant of Huo Yua's location. Since his concubine had been killed, this evil eye tyrant was naturally furious. He quickly pursued Huo Yua, which was also the reason why Huo Yua felt a suppressive and ominous feeling in his heart. As his soul rings rose, Huo Yua's eyes brightened, and his first soul ring shone with white light. His eyes immediately turned purplish gold, and 2 streaks of materialized, purplish gold light shot out towards the evil eye tyrant. After his spiritual power experienced its qualitative increase, Huo Yua was able to manipulate his spiritual shock and make it domain type or unidirectional. The 2 streaks of purplish gold light instantly shot forward several hundred meters and landed on the evil eye tyrant. This evil eye tyrant's pupil dilated, and rings of silver light patterns started to spread outwards from its body. As a top-ranked spiritual type soul beast, it was clearly aware that a strong spiritual type soul skill couldn't be avoided, and so it didn't even bother evading. Just like Huo Yua was confident in his own spiritual power, it wasn't afraid of facing a soul emperor, given its cultivation. Even though it could tell that Huo Yua was a little weird, and he was able to break out from its spiritual control, it still didn't regard Huo Yua highly. The 2 streaks of purplish gold light stopped in the air as they collided with the rings of silver light patterns, immediately creating surging ripples of energy. Huo Yua and this evil eye tyrant were at both ends of a spiritual storm that had erupted between the two of them. As Huo Yua was the one who had started the attack, this spiritual storm was more concentrated around the evil eye tyrant. The destructiveness of this spiritual storm was different from the destructive capability of soul power. As it raged, the air between Huo Yua and the evil eye tyrant warped drastically, and everything seemed to turn unreal. All the plants in the region started to wither at an alarming rate. They weren't destroyed directly, but their internal structures were messed up under the effect of the clashing spiritual powers, and their biological integrity was affected. The silver undulations started to become stronger. They began to buzz, and a series of terrifying spiritual explosions occurred. Intimidating explosive forces were unleashed in random directions. The withered plants were blown apart and scattered everywhere. Huo Yua squirmed like a withered leaf and was flung backward as he suffered from the shockwaves of these explosions. There was no expression on his face, but a dim light flashed across his eyes. He shut his eyes as his 3rd and 4th soul rings shone in succession. A white skeletal head appeared above the evil eye tyrant. Even with its abilities, it was still affected by Huo Yua's enfeeblement even as it went up against his spiritual power. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.